Welcome to a new episode of the Straight Wrestling Voices of the Indies podcast. I'm your host Morbo, and with me, as always, everyone's favorite US independent wrestling fan, Sebastian.
Thank you as always for the introduction, Morbo, and welcome everyone to this week's episode of Straight Wrestling Voices of the Indies. And our guest today is a real veteran of the independent wrestling scene of the southeast of the United States. He has been active for TWE, for Renegade Championship Wrestling, and for many more promotions from the region, from Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee. And we are really happy to have him as our guest today. And with that, welcome and thank you for taking the time to be our guest today, Jayke Murphy.
I'm happy to be here, man.
So, Jake, for the people who don't know who you are, who is Jayke Murphy?
Can I swear? Because I was gonna say Jayke Murphy is kind of a prick, honestly. I mean, I don't know. I was just like a kid with a dream. Like I remember, I started watching wrestling, and well, I'm really gonna date myself with this. When WWF at the time was doing the lead up to WrestleMania 6. It was about the time I discovered wrestling, and I was fascinated by it. And then, and there's never anything I thought I could do. And then when like guys like Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels and those guys started to become huge stars, it was when I was like, hey, they're small. I'm a small kid. I bet I could do that one day. And it's funny because my wrestling career actually started at a car wash at about 2:00 in the morning. Because a guy that lived with me at the time, I just got back into watching wrestling again, and the guy that lived with me at the time, we'd always just like laugh at him. We're like, yeah, and then here come Jake and Ben, and they're gonna go beat up the guys or whatever. And a guy I went to high school with, who was a wrestler, he's retired now. A guy named Damian Black. I'd forgotten he wrestled. And we'd walk down to the store, and we were standing outside this car wash, and smoking cigarettes and just being hoodlums. And he happened to pull up, and we were just talking to him, and he's, we're like, you still doing that wrestling thing? He goes, yeah. And I was like, well, how do we get into it? He's like, find somebody to train you, all this, find a show to go to. And I was like, well, do you know anybody that can train us? He's like, yeah, I can. I was like, well, how much would you charge us? He goes, well, I've known you guys since high school, so free. And that was 21 years ago.
How would you describe your character, and did you have any inspirations or role models within wrestling that influenced this character?
Initially, at first, when I first started, it was a very punk rock centric kind of thing, because I was in and out of bands before I got into wrestling, and I was really into punk rock, like like Black Flag, Dead Kennedys, stuff like that. So I had my mohawk, and I didn't have like traditional gear. I just wrestled in t-shirt and in jeans and boots and things. And once I kind of figured things out, and I started to sort of develop my own personality outside of just like, here I am, smiley, dimply faced guy with the mohawk getting his head kicked in. I really started to follow in with like guys like Roddy Piper, and I was trying to be loud and brash and things like that, and like later on, we kind of fleshed that out some more, and I just kind of got to be like more fun loving kind of thing as a baby face. And like I make the joke that I'm almost like obnoxiously nice when I'm a baby face. It's almost like watching Shawn Michaels type thing. But as a heel, I definitely pull from like Roddy and like CM Punk, and that's really funny because everybody always makes the jokes about me because my gear is similar to what his was. Stylistically, like actually like moves and styles of matches, like very much Bret, very much like Dynamite Kid. Like I always tout Dynamite Kid as like my favorite wrestler of all time.
How is independent wrestling in your region different today compared to the time when you started wrestling?
Oh, it's so different. I remember when I first started, there were a lot of the older fellas where they would do things and say things to you that it's like that's kind of mean, like. And I don't want to. for one, I can't remember many of the names, and for another, I don't want to out anyone for it, but you'd kind of get this attitude of like they'd consider you're lucky to be here, and they'd be like, you suck, and you'd be like, well, okay, and then they would drop it. They didn't want to do anything to help you get any better, and I don't know if it was like they're trying to protect their spot type thing, because if you got better, you're gonna come for their spot, and it's like night and day now, and TWE is one of those places that I think kind of changed that, because I've told some of the performance center kids at TWE that like you guys are lucky, man. Like there wasn't many guys that are in my position now that would have done that are like this or would have been like this for you, you know. So I've always tried to be like the cool old guy, I guess, because I had a few. Like your game was one of those dudes that was like the older guy, but he was always cool, and he kind of took me under his wing and stuff.
You already mentioned TWE. What influence did TWE have on your local independent wrestling, and especially on how it developed?
I feel like it forced a lot of people to get like better, because it's kind of weird in the South, especially when I started. A lot of it was guys were just good enough to get by, and a place like TWE opened, and we were kind of that like. There was a lot of like muttering between some of the other promotions. Were like, "Oh, they won't last a year," and blah blah blah. This, and they'd say some disparaging things about us as a whole, and then it stuck around, you know, and the crowd started getting bigger, and we started getting more exposure and all this, and like the style at TW was so different than everything was around here at the time, because most of it, with a few exceptions, was very rooted in that old Southern style, like almost 1980s NWA, WCW, Mid South type stuff, and then TWE came along, and it was faster paced and bigger moves and things. And you saw some more of the places start doing stuff like that. And it's really cool when you get on the ground floor or something like that, and you get to watch it get bigger and influence everybody else that's around you.
Your manager, Kat from Frankenstein, is also your girlfriend in real life. How does it feel to work? How does it feel to work with your partner? And what would you say? How influential are you for each other's career?
I've actually heard this from a few people that she was kind of what I'd been missing for a while, which is awesome. Like I love that for her. There's at RCW Renegade, they a few people in the office referred her as the show's MVP. And she has plans, and she's training. She plans on actually wrestling. She's had a couple of matches, but nothing like substantial. But she forces me to like she's not forces, but she's gotten me to up my game, and she's all the time asking me, well, what can I do to get better? Like she's worried about am I coming along fast enough with training and all this. And she has an actual like martial arts background. She's a 4th degree black belt in Ishinryu karate, and we're having we kind of have issues sometimes breaking some of her martial arts training. You know, there's things in it that don't translate to wrestling so well, and we kind of have to get her reality out of this about not wanting to come off your feet. It's like, we gotta do this, you know. I'm having a blast though, like working with her in the last, like year and a half or so has probably been one of my favorite, if not my favorite, like runs of my career. And it's fun getting to share that with somebody that I'm with 24 hours a day, you know.
You already mentioned it, and one promotion that many people mainly associate you with is TWE. You were in the main event of the second show ever of TWE alongside Jay Newman against JD Rowlands and Tyler Sutton. What are your memories of this match?
Oh man, like because I've known Sutton for a long time. He's one of my best friends, and over the period of him and JD working so closely together, I got really close with JD, And now we have a podcast together and stuff from things like that. That was a fun time because they were the top bad guys at the time. They were the top heels, and JD was the champion. And that whole thing ended up leading to me getting to win my first TWE championship, which was really cool. And get the shit, Jaden's up by my side for that. And like, I've watched that kid grow up, and there was a lot. Cause me and Tyler Sutton, we came up together essentially. Like, he started like a year after me, and it's like, it's one of those where like, when it hits you, and you're like, wow, this is really cool. Memories aside from that is, I do remember I blacked my own eye in that match because I tried to hit a diving headbutt on Tyler and JD at the same time, and the shoulders went right into my eyes, and it was not, it'll draw money.
You are one of the TWE originals who have been there pretty much from the start. What would you say? What are your memories of the time when TWE first started in general?
Ooh, there were some nights where it was like, crowd was bare, and it's like, well, if a riot breaks out, we've got them outnumbered. And there were some times like, the day of the show, like a couple hours before, people would like cancel on us or whatever. And there were times when it's like, hey, we may not make it much longer. And I don't know, like 11 years later, it's still here. Like, it's so cool to see. It's almost like watching a kid grow up, like your kid grow up, which, I mean, I do consider Jaden like my little brother because I met him before he had his first match. I was there for his first match. I'm just so proud of it, because I haven't gotten to be in from the beginning at a promotion before. I've always just joined them like as they were in progress type thing. So like, I really consider TWE my home, because the place that I did consider my home before that shut down maybe a week or two after TWE even opened. That was a TWA in Dalton here, which was like maybe 10 minutes from my house. And that's like where I met like all my friends at the time. And then TWE just happened to happen. And, I got invited there by Chris Crunk, and I've been there ever since. And I was, the first main event on the first show against a guy named Chip Hazard, who I knew from down here. So it was like all full circle and everything. And, I may not be as important in the grand scheme and in the stories and everything that are going on at TWE now, but I mean, just still being involved with some of the talent and everything that comes through those doors is just really cool.
What would you say? How did TWE develop since it first started compared to now?
Oh man, it's gotten a lot more complicated, if that makes sense. And the production is so much more involved in everything. The building's transformed. Like, the building looks way cooler. The style has gotten like, it's the in-ring product is so much better than it used to be. And I mean, that's what you should strive for anyway, is always getting better, not just as a wrestler, but as the promotion itself. And there's not in independent wrestling, I don't think there's a lot of room for dudes that suck anymore. If for lack of a better phrase, I suppose. But like, you have to be good. And you have to, like, something has to set you apart. And I think TWE has found that its way to set itself apart. And like, I may be overblowing a little bit, but it's almost become like an ECW type place, like ECW's early days, because it was like this destination. And like, I mean, you guys know about it, all the way from Germany. So we must be doing something right. I would have never imagined back then that somebody from overseas would have known who we are or what we do, so that's super cool to me.
You already referred to Jane Newman, and you and Jane have also been a part of a stable together, the Hooligan Heroes, in 2016. And how would you describe in general the influence that you and Jane had on each other's careers?
If I've had any kind of influence on Jaden's career, I like to think I did, but it would have been mostly on his earlier stuff, because like, him now to him then is like so night and day. He's so much more confident, and rightfully so, because he's one of the best wrestlers around. Like, he can easily stack up with any name you could throw out there. So, and watching him get better, like, makes me like, man, I gotta get better. Like, and I have no shame in saying that he's way better than me at this point. Like, for example, one day at the performance center, they were rolling around. They were doing chain wrestling, and I rolled in because most of the time I don't participate so much. I'm more of a advice and kind of a coach. But I was feeling spry, and I got in there, and then Jaden rolled in, and I was like, "Oh, okay, we're not playing now. Let's go." And I kind of, I mean, he got the better of me, but I held my own, and it made me feel a lot better because not as young as I used to be.
You talked to Morbo in the introduction about how you try to treat younger wrestlers different than you were treated. And a part of this is that you not only appear on the regular TWE shows, but also on the Crash Course shows that are always on Mondays. What does it mean for you as a veteran of the Southeast scene to work with the younger talent?
Oh man, it's an honor because whenever you see one of them move on somewhere or go do something big, it's like it's almost like they're taking a piece of you with them, so you're kind of living through them, like, type thing. Because I'll name Jameson as one because I worked really close with Jameson Shook on some of the early Crash Course shows, and then we had our big match at the last anniversary, at 10 Years Strong, and he beat me, and he got a couple of bookings just off of that match that he had with me, and I was just like, yeah, man, go get him, kid. Like, and getting to have, like, my fingerprints are on some of these kids because, like, Casey Owens is one. He'll ask me questions, and that's great. I was like, it's all these other people here, and you're asking me, but okay, yeah. And, like, Sigrid, she asks me stuff all the time. Like, we'll have, like, conversations like 2 o'clock in the morning on, like, a Wednesday or something about some small aspect of wrestling. Or, I mean, Skunk has come to me about stuff. And like I said, it's almost an honor to do that. And I'm one of the older fellas on the Crash Course shows, and it's just fun. It the vibe of it almost reminds me of when I was first starting, because we don't do a whole lot of the production stuff for Crash Course. Like, we don't have the video screens on, and we don't do the big light entrances and everything like we do on the Saturdays. So it was very much like, reminded me of those days. And the crowds are kind of smaller, so it forces you to interact with them and stuff more. And I don't know, just watching these kids grow and develop is fun. It's fun for me because when everybody starts wrestling, your big goal is like, I want to go to the WWE. I want to go do this. I want to go do that. And I think I'm past my expiration date on something like that ever. So now for me, it's like, I want to help. If I can help one person achieve their dream, I'm happy.
One match that comes to my mind when I think about you and your work for TWE is a Bunkhouse Stampede match you had against Big Dave on October 14th of last year. What are your thoughts on this match and maybe even the feud as a whole?
Oh man, well, it was one that was born out of Crash Course, actually. They put me and Dave together, and I do remember, like, thinking, like, man, what am I going to do with this? And then we went out and we just had this chemistry together. And I was like, yeah, all right, let's go, man. And they just started putting me and him together more and more. And then when the bunkhouse thing came up, they were trying to come up with, like, we need a good way to end the feud. And the bunkhouse thing came up because that's kind of like one of Dave's, like, specialties, I believe, at New South. And I was like, all right, dude, let's go. And, like, we had very little planned for that. And it just, like, everything we were doing was working. And it was also fun because we got one of the regular, like, fans, people that the fans know of, like Rhonda, got involved in the whole thing, and that was making it even bigger and everything. And to be slotted, like, in a main event position now at TWE is nothing to sneeze at. And we were that show. We were the flyer, we were the draw for that show. And I was just so cool, and then to see Dave kind of bust out at TWE because of that whole angle was just, it's great, man. And Me and him are pretty close now because of that. And people still talk about Dave starting the match off by throwing that hay bale at me. So we must have done something right.
Following up on the last question, what are your favorite or like most important matches in TWE in general for you personally?
The 4-way ladder match, I think it was actually like a 5 or 6-way ladder match, actually. When I won my first TWE championship was one because there was guys that I grew up in the business with, like Chip Hazard and Drew Game and Tyler Sutton and JD Rollins were there, and Jaden was in the match. And, you know, it was the first time I won the TWE championship, so that's always going to be special to me. There was the series of matches I had with Colby Carino in that building, because that one was one where, like, you know, I thought I was pretty good at this. And, you know, and then I get in the ring with Colby, and I was like, or maybe I'm not quite as good at this as I thought I was. And getting better through that. Like, I will always love those matches I had with Colby there. I had a series of matches with a guy named Mike Excellence that was really good, which Mike doesn't do a whole lot anymore. And that was a feud over the TWE championship. That was my second time I got it. There was a couple. There was a 3-way match we had at a sink or swim that was Chris Crunk, myself, and Jaden. That was really good. There's a YouTube highlight package of that floating around on the internet somewhere that I always really liked. The Big Dave match, the match with Jameson, both of them actually. The one I think we had on a sink or swim, and then the one we had at 10 Years Strong. Will Steele's very first match on a crash course where he beat me. That was really important to me because it was, you know, that guy's first match, and I've got to see him kind of grow as a wrestler since then. Oh man, there's so many, so many. There was the 1 year on Red Bank Roulette where no, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. It was 9 Years Strong when Kat made her debut, coming out midways through a match to help me. That was super cool. The match I had with Manders has got to be, that's probably one of my top 10 favorite matches I've ever had. Because, I don't know, they told me it was like a reward for me for the hard work I've been doing. They're like, we want you to have this match with Manders. And that was super cool. Like, that guy's so good.
You're not only active for TWE, but also for multiple other promotions. Not that long ago, on July 27th, you had a match as a part of the tag team Cerberus against Brother Fusion, as a part of Resolute 19 for the promotion Renegade Championship Wrestling. What can you tell us about the match, but maybe also the promotion in general?
Well, RCW was one of those ones. It like they've been around for 19 years. I had done things for them in the past, like just occasionally. And then within the last year and a half, 2 years, I've become a regular there. And it's been a place that Kat's been able to get a lot of experience for her managing and stuff, and get different slants on people's views of wrestling and everything. So she's learned a whole lot there. And they're one of those promotions before, like in the area that I was talking about before, that, you know, there was guys that were just getting by. And now, like, even since I've been there, you've seen like a change almost in the style, because guys like Chris Crunk have come through, and you could see almost a switch in the style of the matches and the quality of the matches and things. And guys like me being there, and then they've been pulling in some outside names and everything. And it was almost like there used to be this saying in this area of the state that was, Chatsworth, Georgia was place wrestling goes to die. And now we've had several shows there where it's standing room only. Like, when people were there were no chairs. So that's super cool. And I don't know, that match was really fun for me because I've known Brandon Collins and Jason Collins for a long time. And getting to wrestle them, essentially coming out of retirement, to have their match for them on a show where they were getting inducted into the Hall of Fame was super cool. And, you know, with my tag team partner at the time, because that was the impetus for mine and his tag team breakup, was that match was super cool to me. And, you know, end result, because it turned me in Cat babyface, and that was the thing that even the office was like, I don't know if you guys can be good guys. Like, they really hate Cat. And so the fact that we were able to get him on our side was really cool. Yeah. So, and it was hot in that building because summertime down here is it's no joke. When you've got like 150 people packed into what's already kind of a small building, like the air is almost like soup.
Another promotion that you are currently active for is Ego Pro. How would you describe Ego Pro to our listeners who haven't heard about it before?
Well, fun fact actually about Ego Pro, it's run by a guy named Barry Allen. Barry Allen's actually who set me and Kat up as a couple. That's he's how we got together. But I've always said that working for Barry Allen at Ego Pro was like getting to wrestle for ECW because he very much reminds me of Paul Heyman, and it's almost like a ECW kind of meets 80s wrestling, if you can follow me on that, because you're familiar with ECW, it was very like gritty and rough and that kind of thing, and the 80s were big characters and everything. So Barry's got these over the top and outlandish type characters, but the matches are very rough and tumble, like, and they can get wild. They can fight all over the building. Like, for example, their anniversary is coming up the same weekend as TWE's anniversary, and I'll be there. That's why I'm not on night 2 at TWE, and I'm only on night 1. It's because I'll be at Ego on the Saturday. But they've got a match coming up that's a street fight, and the last time there was a street fight, boy, they were all over the building. They were outside. Oh wait, I was in that match. We were outside. We were in the bathrooms. We were in the seats, and it'll get crazy. And I know Barry will enjoy that reference if he hears this. Comparing him to Paul Heyman, because that's his nickname. He's the mad scientist. We refer to his house as the lab. So he's very much a student of that kind of stuff, and like that whole community around Athens, Tennessee comes out when Barry runs a show. He doesn't run them super often. Like, he's once every couple of months type thing, but he'll pack 150, 200 people inside that armory, and they are loud about it.
In 2023, you have also been a part of the Scenic City Rumble. What did this mean to you professionally, but maybe also personally?
Professionally, it was, here I get a chance to show off. A lot of people that have never seen me before are going to get a chance to see me. And personally, for me, it was kind of vindicating a little bit, because as often as the SCI stuff's been going on, like I've never gotten invited to anything, and even just it being in the Rumble was super huge for me, and I was honored to be in it. I may not have been in it for very long, but there were a lot of people that probably had never seen me before that got a chance to see me, and they got to see Cat, so that was really cool. I mean, my next goal, I would like to be in the tournament or on the tournament show itself, or have an actual match one day, but at least I got the Rumble spot, I do know a handful of my friends actually got IWTV subscriptions just so they could watch me be in the Rumble, so that was really fun. And the George, it gave me a front row seat for George South and Mike Jackson's match, which was so fun to watch.
Before Mormon will talk to you about what is next for you, I would like to take a look back at promotions you appeared for in the past, especially 2 promotions. The first one is Pro South Wrestling from Alabama. You wrestled for them in 2016 and 2018. And 2016, most of these matches were related to the Hooligans Hero stable I already talked about before. What are your memories of your time in PSW, and maybe also in particular of the stable?
That stable was just so fun because it was me, Jaden Newman, Bailey Blake, and a kid named Austin Willows. And the 3 of them were already really close. And it was almost like this big brother with his little brothers type thing. And we just got to be these like obnoxious little heels. Well, they got to be the obnoxious little heels. I was just kind of like the stop monkeying around type guy. And if I remember correctly, we were brought in the build up to their annual trios tournament, the Trinity Cup. So and it was all leading up into that. There was a really funny story about one of those matches. Was they all three had come out to the ring with me. I don't remember who I was wrestling now, but they were supposed to be involved in the ending of the match, and they mistimed their interference, and the referee saw the whole thing, and somebody in the back on the earpiece got it and was like, I mean, you have to disqualify him. You were looking right at it. So I went into full like improv mode because I was supposed to win the match. I went into full improv mode, and I run over to commentary, and I grab his headset and I start talking about how I'm going to fire everybody. And then my dad's a lawyer in California, and I'll buy this promotion just to shut it down and stuff like that. It was a whole lot of fun because I got to be a little bit more silly than I normally do, especially as a heel, because I'm usually, grim faced and a sourpuss when I'm a heel. So when something funny happens to me, it's extra funny. I had a lot of fun riding down there because it was always the four of us in the car, and it's a pretty good little drive. So I think over doing those shows with Pro South with Jaden and the other two was like, it kind of got me and Jaden a lot closer. So
the second promotion that I refer to is Resolute Wrestling, or Glory Pro as it was called until 2017. What are your thoughts on your matches you had there in 2017?
Oh, wow, I love that place. It was a whole lot of fun. Though the one match though that really stands out to me that I had there was it was a couple of matches actually I had with Toby Farley, and I'd always liked Toby, and I was super excited to get to work with him and everything. I think one reason they may have had me not come back was because they had me positioned as a heel, and over the course of my final match with Toby, the crowd started cheering for me by the end of it. And I get to the back, and one of the guys comes and is like, "Hey, there's like 10 or 12 guys, like fans, like right outside the door, and they want you to come out here and like talk to them." I'm like, "No, I'm a bad guy. No, I'm not going. I'm not going out there." Like 20 minutes pass, and he's like, "Hey, they're still out here," and I was like, "Well, tell them to go away. Like, I'm not coming back out." Another 10, 20 minutes passes. He's like, "Well, they're not leaving." And I was like, "All right, let me go out there and talk to them." And they just started talking about like, "Man, you're really good," and all this. And that was cool. Like, I don't think they wanted me to be a good guy, so they didn't have anything for me anymore. And I think that was my last time being there. No, it was a totally different vibe, and it's so much fun because the territories don't exist anymore. The independent wrestling scene is taken over for what the territories were, and it's so fun to like and strange how you can go a couple hours up the road somewhere, and the style of wrestling at that promotion is so different than it is like Resolute style is totally different than TWE's. TWE's is so different than Ego Pro, and Ego Pro is so different than RCW here in Georgia. So, and it's only a couple hours difference in drive, or maybe a half an hour difference in drive, and you get such a different feel from everything, and it's wild. I'd assume that's what a guy would feel like back in the '80s, going from like Florida Championship Wrestling to like going to work in Texas for the Von Erichs or something.
Question before I hand it over to Morbo. Are there any more like local independent wrestling shows that you appeared for in the past and where the results can't be found online that you would like to talk about?
Well, like I said, my early years down here in Dalton at TWA, which was where I started, it doesn't exist anymore, like I said. But I don't think locally there were really a whole lot. There were a couple of places, or a couple of things that were just like one night shows. It was just a thing for that. I remember I got to do a four-way lucha style match that involved Jimmy Rave, and that was on a tribute show. My friend Toy Dotson's son had passed away, and he was running a tribute show for Austin. And Austin used to be this. He used to run around in the back at shows and stuff, and he'd book his own little cards, and he'd come and show them to the guys and all this. And Toy had told us there was always a match that he really, really wanted to see. It was me, the Great Renga, former tag team partner of mine, Ray Fury, another former tag team partner of mine, and Jimmy Rave. And this was Toy's chance to book that match, so he books it, and that match is so cool. And then it's like, it means so much more to me now that Jamie's gone, and I'll still go back from time to time and watch that match.
Are there promotions in the Southeast that you haven't appeared for until now and that you would like to wrestle for in the future, or maybe even promotions outside of your local region?
Oh sure. Like I would love to be on like another SCI sponsored show. I would love to. I've heard a lot about Southern Honor. That'd be a fun one to go to. There's one that a friend of mine, Matt Sells, works for a whole lot. I can't. The name escapes me right now, but I'd like to do that because I love hanging out with Matt Sells. Love to tag with that guy. Matter of fact, but no. I'd love to go back to the West Coast because I'm originally from California. I would love to get the wrestle out there. And I know a lot of the TWE folks have started going like to the Northeast. Like I wouldn't mind at all going and wrestling in Boston because Boston's one of my favorite cities in the world. I get to hang out there. I'd love to come with Jaden sometime if he ever got to, when he comes back to Germany. I'd love to wrestle in Germany. I'd love to see how different it is firsthand. Like I've watched some of his stuff in WXW, and I'm like, I'd like to do that, but I'd like to experience firsthand how the difference is. But my main goal of all goals ever, and I've almost no interest in ever going to WWE, and I'm sure they wouldn't even give me a second look. But I've always said I could retire happy if I could have just like one match in Japan, and that's still like my biggest goal ever. And I'm probably running out of time on that because I'll be 40 years old in January, and I'm planning my exit strategy. Like I'm starting to learn like commentary and stuff. So still holding out for that one Japan trip though.
You have been a 4 times TWE champion. In Renegade Championship Wrestling, you won both the RCW No Limits Championship and the RCW Championship. Are there still other championships you would like to win in the future, or is it also a goal to regain the championships you once had?
I would like, before I'm done all the way, to win the TWE Championship one more time, because that's just a personal goal of mine. Because as it stands now, currently, me and Drew Game, the late Drew Game, we're both tied for most title wins at TWE at 4 apiece. And that's like, I personally ribbed him about that when he was still around, that, I'm going to be the guy that breaks your record. He's like, no, you're not. And I'm like, yeah, I will. I'll get it, And then after he passes, like, well, now I have to do it, So I can get him on that one. Sure. Like, I wouldn't mind at all getting, like, maybe the RCW championship back, or successfully defending my Ego Pro Southeastern Television Championship at the anniversary show. That's good. I don't know, man. It's like people are always like, "Oh, titles don't mean what they used to," but like, I always like it because it's like a sign of trust when, or in responsibility when somebody gives you a championship. So it's always cool. But you kind of downplays. You don't want to look like a dork for being, "Oh, I want the belt. I want the belt." Like, I mean, they're fun to have. Most of the time, I complain when I have them though, because it's something extra I have to carry around with me. Makes my bags heavier.
Are there certain wrestlers that are like on your bucket list that you didn't have a match against so far and that you still want to wrestle in your career?
Well, it's still on my bucket list, even though I've probably wrestled the kid several times. I'd love to have a match with Jaden again, because the last time I wrestled Jaden was for a short-lived show called LCW that was running in Cleveland, Tennessee, and believe that was the last time I've wrestled Jaden one-on-one. And it's kind of a shame because there's only about 20 people there. Jaden has the highlights to that match on his YouTube channel, if anyone's wanting to go watch that. It's a match that I was very proud of. I would really, and I know it probably never happened, I would really like to wrestle the Billingtons, Thomas or Mark, or both even, because Dynamite being my favorite wrestler ever, to get to wrestle his nephews would be like a dream come true. I'd love to do something with Danhausen. That'd be fun. Suppose you probably met more local guys though than that. I really, really, really want to have a match with Casey Owens, because I've told Casey this personally, that he reminds me a lot of, Drew Game, and that Drew would have loved him. So I'd love to be able to wrestle Casey just to see if that is as true as I say it is. I have no doubts that it'd be a good match, but like, he's probably one of my favorite wrestlers to watch at TWE.
On August the 25th, you will have a match against Will Steele, John Bivens, and Aiden Wright as a part of Ego Pro Wrestling Ready Player 19. What are your thoughts on this match?
Man, that one's gonna be good, because I've wrestled John Bivens several times at this point, and he's very much of the same sort of, like, he really likes the same kind of style as me. Like, he really likes that All Japan Kings Road style stuff, and same with Aiden. He's a big, like, Stan Hansen fan, so anytime we'd wrestle, it's like, hey man, it's gonna be, Dynamite Kid versus Stan Hansen. This is gonna be it. Let's go. And I'm excited for Will Steele to get that opportunity. It's gonna be kind of a test for him. Well, I have no doubts he's gonna be good at it. He's just, since he's had his first match, he's gotten better every time, like visibly better every time. I feel like, and it's not just me tooting my own horn or anything and trying to get myself over, but like, that match has the ability to steal the show. All the matches on that show really have the potential to steal that show. But I'm taking that one as the personal challenge. Like, I am going to try to steal the show with this.
Are there any more upcoming matches and shows that you would like to talk about?
This weekend, which I don't know when you guys release all this stuff, but this weekend, the RCW show, I finally get my one-on-one match with my ex-tag team partner at Renegade Championship Wrestling, Brent Banner. A lot of people have been very excited to see me put a thumping on him. Again, 11 years strong. Me and Damon Stryker are going to be featured in the Drew Game Battle Royal, which is the first time I've been invited to be in the Drew Game Battle Royal. Ego's Ready Player 19. Very excited about that. Sunday coming up, I'm going to be a part of Kevin Ryan's Forever Pro Wrestling. Don't know what I'm doing on that yet, but when I was asked to be on that, I was very excited. I don't know when the next one's going to be, but Tyler Sutton's Clash of Carpet City shows. I always love those, because I did get to be on the one where they had brought Colt Cabana in, so that was very fun. That was a good time, especially getting to watch him and Tiger Kid wrestle against my friend Drew Game and Shane Daniels. No, that's kind of the ones for me coming up anyway. I know I've got the Forever Pro after the one coming up, which is the Sunday after. That's going to be great. I've got Bloodbaths and Body Shots in Asheville, North Carolina at the end of the month for Ghazi. That's going to be a fun show. That's Katie's super excited about that, because that's the furthest out we've gone for a show together is North Carolina. And I'm wrestling a guy named Ryan Bantus on that show. Never met him. Don't know a whole lot about him. But that's going to be, and anytime you have to wrestle in something like a bar, that's it's always the wild card, because you don't know what's going to happen.
Okay, Jake, that's it. We're at the end of the interview. And as always, the stage is yours. You can plug and promote anything you want.
If you want, follow me on X, on Twitter, whatever you want to call it, at Murphy No Future. You could follow my manager, Kat Von Frankenstein, at Kat Frankenstein. You get to go listen to my podcast. We're on Spotify, Not Another Freaking Podcast. We used to cover wrestling in the early days. We don't cover it as much anymore, but our back catalog is still on there. You can find me on Facebook. I'm on there, Jayke Murphy. Go check out Ego Pro Wrestling. They're on YouTube. They're on Facebook. You can check out my stuff on IWTV. I'm all over that for TWE and the Crash Course shows. You can search me on YouTube. Get several matches on there. If you like rock and roll, you can look up my younger brother's old band, Radio Ruse. I don't know how much of their stuff you can really find anymore, because they're not really a thing, but check them out. you like Rolling Stones, old time rock and roll stuff, keep supporting TWE, keep supporting all of us through all that. And listen to these guys. They know what they're talking about. Morbo and Sebastian. And I hope maybe I'm on one of the SCIs that you guys are actually coming to, so I can actually meet you face to face. That'd be fun.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming on the show, Jake. It's always nice to talk to a veteran. By the way, I'm 38. I started watching US independent wrestling in 2001, so I'm also an old timer in regards.
Oh, okay.
So it's always nice to have like a veteran and go way back to the earlier days of US independent wrestling.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you again.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Also, a big thank you from me to you, as always, Morbo, and to you, as always, freuen, but especially to you, Jake. As you know, I'm such a huge fan of everything TWE does, and to have you here as someone who's been there from pretty much day one, and who's been such a veteran of the South East independent wrestling scene in general is very special for us, and therefore thank you for taking the time, and also thank you to our listeners for listening to our podcast, and I hope you will listen to us again. Goodbye.